Incredible twist, single mom's adoption plans revealed. CEO steps up with a surprising offer. Sarah stared at the adoption paperwork spread across her tiny dining table, the clutter of her modest apartment feeling even more suffocating than usual. Each form reminded her of the long road ahead, and her heart raced as she thought of her son, Caleb, and the life she fiercely wanted to provide for him. Battling exhaustion after another grueling shift at the hospital, she felt broken, her dreams overshadowed by the crushing weight of financial instability. The walls adorned with Caleb's colorful crayon drawings seemed to mock her, a testament to their shared joy amidst an unseen struggle. Would she ever be enough for him? Every evening, the laughter they shared echoed throughout their home, but tonight, doubt clouded her mind. Was this truly the right decision? She wanted nothing more than to see her son enveloped in the warmth of a loving family, but the anonymous judgment from the outside world clung to her like a heavy fog. She pictured the sterile office where the adoption meeting would take place, the glare of unforgiving fluorescent lights and the scrutinizing gaze of strangers. What if they found her unworthy? What if they could see the cracks in her carefully maintained facade? Before she could spiral further, she grabbed her notes, made her way to the nearby diner, and settled into a booth, the familiar clink of silverware grounding her. She flipped through the papers, but her mind kept wandering. Suddenly, she noticed a man at the counter. David, a sharply dressed CEO from that tech startup in town. He was everything she wasn't: polished, confident, seemingly devoid of struggles. For a brief moment, she felt the sting of envy. What could someone like him possibly know about sacrifice or heartache? Their eyes met briefly, but Sarah quickly averted hers, returning to her notes. Yet the pressure of her impending meeting loomed heavy, and despite her protests, a whisper in her mind encouraged her to speak. As if sensing her internal turmoil, David approached and introduced himself with an easy smile. They exchanged pleasantries, but the conversation took a surprisingly intimate turn when they began sharing their backgrounds. Sarah felt a tug of connection as David recounted his chaotic upbringing, a life filled with uncertainty. Could this man understand her? "I spent most of my childhood in foster care," he confessed, his expression serious. "I know what it's like to feel alone." In that moment, Sarah's heart surged with conflicting emotions. Could she trust someone whose world felt so far removed from her own? As they talked, David leaned in closer, offering genuine support that startled her. "If you're serious about adoption, I want to help," he said, the weight of his words settling between them. She caught her breath. Help? The notion felt foreign, an unwelcome invitation to a life wrapped in privilege she had never dared to aspire to. Did accepting his offer mean she'd abandon her independence? Fear clawed at her heart, battling against the flicker of hope igniting inside. Before she could process this overwhelming moment, she felt the urgency rising, her mind racing through possibilities and doubts. Was this the missing piece she'd been searching for, or the first crack in her carefully built sanctuary? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sweat beaded at her brow as panic gripped her. What if trusting this stranger led to disappointment? Just when she thought she could accept his help, David's past began to surface, revealing secrets he kept buried deep. Tension coiled tighter within her, shattering her public persona, forcing her to confront the realities of her own damaged heart. In that cramped diner, surrounded by familiar faces, Sarah felt the distance between them widen. Each shared story highlighted her own feelings of inadequacy. Was she really the embodiment of hope, or merely an illusion of strength waiting to crumble? As she looked into David's earnest eyes, Sarah's mind twirled a maelstrom of fear, desire, and the silent scream for something more. Would she be brave enough to navigate this new path, or would the safety of solitude shield her from the risk of revelation? The diner was filled with the hum of conversation and the clatter of plates, yet Sarah felt isolated within her thoughts. David's presence loomed large, a potential beacon in the chaotic storm of her life. But each laugh from a nearby table unspooled doubts, echoing the insecurities that whispered she wasn't enough, wasn't worthy of help. "I can see you're thinking a lot," David said gently, drawing her back to the moment. "It's okay if you need time to process this. You can trust me, you know." His words held a subtle power, a delicately woven trust that urged her closer to vulnerability. "Trust," she whispered to herself, testing the weight of the word. It had always been a fragile concept for her, dredged up from painful memories of betrayal. Trust was what made the world feel like a risky game, where each player had intentions that could cut deep if unchecked. "What's holding you back?" David's gaze remained steady. It wasn't invasive, it was inviting, as if he understood that the walls she built had long been their own prison. "Everything," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "What if I can't follow through? What if I fail, Caleb? I've always had to rely on myself. What if letting you in means losing control?" She leaned back, crossing her arms defensively. David considered her words, his brow furrowing as he absorbed her fears. "You're not losing control, Sarah. You're expanding your circle. Life changes when you allow people in. It can add depth instead of chaos." His perspective sent a ripple through her defenses. Could he possibly comprehend the alienating pressure of her situation? Yet in the shadows of her skepticism, a flicker of curiosity ignited. She observed his posture solid and poised as if he had mastered the art of navigating complexities. Perhaps his experience could offer her insight. "Why do you want to help me?" she asked, her voice cautious, but tinged with a hint of intrigue. David paused, considering his words carefully. "Because I understand what it means to feel lost and alone. Everyone deserves a fighting chance, and if I can use my resources to help, why wouldn't I?" The idea wrapped around Sarah like a warm blanket, but the warmth was laced with trepidation. What would help look like? Would it mean dependency? Was she ready for that? "I appreciate your offer, really," she said, testing her own resolve. "But I have to think through this carefully. I can't just leap without knowing if it's safe." "Take all the time you need," David replied. "Just know that it's okay to take a leap. It can lead to places you've never imagined." As she left the diner, the cool night air hit Sarah like a splash of cold water. Her heart raced not just with fear, but also with newfound determination. Could she afford to embrace both opportunity and vulnerability? Would she dare to change the narrative she had lived for so long? With each step towards home, she mulled over the possibilities, the two diverging paths presenting themselves before her. One path clung to her solitary existence, promising predictability amid chaos. The other radiated uncertainty, but with the potential for a richer life, one that included Caleb thriving surrounded by love and support. As she entered the familiar sanctuary of her apartment, she was met with Caleb's sleepy smile, innocent and full of light. The decision became sharper. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about his future and the courage she needed to summon. Now, more than ever, Sarah realized she could reshape her narrative. But would she manage to balance her independence with the shadows of her fears? Would she find the strength to seek out that elusive beacon of support without losing herself in the process? The night grew darker outside, wrapping her in a veil of uncertainty as she contemplated her next move. Was she truly ready to confront the deeper layers of her vulnerability? As doubt clung boldly to her thoughts, she realized one thing: the time had come to face the echoes of her past and explore the uncharted territory of trust. The next morning dawned gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that matched the tumult of emotions swirling within Sarah. As she brewed her coffee, the steam rising in thick swirls felt like a physical manifestation of her internal chaos. Plans swirled about how her day could unfold, but each option felt heavy with uncertainty. Caleb was still asleep, wrapped up in a cocoon of blankets, and Sarah could momentarily relish the quiet, the silence, allowing her mind to wander through the labyrinth of her choices. David's words echoed persistently, urging her to embrace the support he offered. Yet with that beckoning flicker of hope came the cold touch of doubt, sending shivers down her spine. After years of tactical independence, could she really consider a partnership? The thought of stepping outside her self-reliance was daunting. The coffee pot clicked off, breaking the silence, and she poured herself a cup. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, the steam curling toward her face as she reflected on the nurturing words David had shared. He had mentioned expanding her circle, but what would that look like practically? Could she start by allowing herself to be vulnerable with Caleb's unique challenges? Perhaps engaging with his teachers, attending meetings, or even seeking therapy for both of them? Each thought was a mental push toward embracing her role as a mother, and yet another push beyond the bounds of her isolated comfort. She needed to take that step, to transform fear into an ally. With steady resolve, she grabbed a notepad and began drafting a list of steps forward. Each item was a tiny act of courage: call the school for updates, research local support groups for single parents, find a therapist who could help both her and Caleb. This was action grounded in authenticity, a reflection of the awareness that she needed more than just her solitary strength. And the realization brought her a peace she hadn't anticipated. Just as she finished her list, her phone buzzed sharply against the table. It was a new message from David. "Hey, thinking about you. If you're ready, let's grab lunch today and talk more about how I can help." A flutter of unease danced in her stomach, but she felt a spark of something else too: anticipation. Did she dare respond? Did she have the courage to step towards this invitation, to allow David into this next chapter of her journey? A wave of conflicting emotions washed over her as she thumbed through the responses, her finger hovering over the screen. Her breath caught as she typed back, "That sounds good. I'd like to talk." Almost immediately, relief washed over her, a sense of liberation forming from her decision to proceed. But as she hit send, the sensation was also laced with the familiar fear of vulnerability. Would this lead to her walls crumbling? Would she lose her grip on what little control she held? Deep inside, she felt a stirring, a recognition that this moment could be pivotal, but she was standing at the precipice of a new threshold. The idea of embracing change pushed her heart rate into a quickening beat, threading both excitement and fear through her veins. By midday, Sarah found herself nervously pacing the small living room as she awaited David's arrival. The walls felt both claustrophobic and oddly protective. Each sound from outside made her jump. She was caught in a web of anticipation and dread. As the doorbell rang, she paused. This could be the moment for a turning point in her life, yet the weight of possibility felt nearly unbearable. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door, preparing to confront her fears head-on. "Ready to talk?" David smiled, the warmth radiating from him offering a momentary balm against her reservations. But as she stepped aside to let him in, the disquiet within her intensified. Was she truly ready to tackle the depths of her barriers? What revelations awaited her in this new discussion about trust and dependency? Everything inside her trembled with uncertainty, but one thing was clear: there was no turning back now. Could she truly embrace the unknown? Each tick of the clock sent nervous anticipation coursing through her. Sarah was teetering on the edge of revelation, and one question echoed louder than the rest: what if in seeking help, she found the strength she never knew she possessed? As they settled into the living room, Sarah's mind was a tempest of thoughts. She poured them both coffee, her hands trembling slightly as she passed David his cup, grateful for the normalcy that the act lent the situation. David took a sip, and the way he savored it felt oddly grounding, a reminder that this moment was just as much about connection as it was about conversation. "Thanks for meeting me," David said, as he set down his mug. His eyes searched hers, inviting, curious. "I know it's a big step." Sarah nodded slowly, her mouth dry. "I'm trying to be brave," she admitted, forcing the words out despite the tightness in her throat. "But I feel like I'm risking a lot by opening up." "I get that," he replied, leaning forward earnestly. "But sharing our struggles can actually be a source of strength. It's an opportunity for growth both for you and for Caleb." She let his words sink in. Did vulnerability really lead to strength? The thought felt foreign but intriguing. She had always prided herself on her independence, but perhaps it was time to reevaluate what that independence meant. "I've spent so much time trying to do everything on my own," Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly. "And I've come to realize that I can't keep carrying this weight alone. I need to support Caleb better." David's expression softened. "That's a huge realization, Sarah. It shows how deeply you care. You're already taking steps toward being the mother he needs." The conversation turned toward Caleb and his educational challenges. As she spoke about him, his laughter, his struggles, the way he would sometimes retreat into himself, Sarah felt a shift within her. Each detail she shared felt like a weight lifted, exposing parts of her heart she had kept guarded for too long. With every word, layers of resentment and fear began to peel away. David asked insightful questions, gently nudging her to consider options for Caleb, resources that could provide support. They discussed therapy, educational strategies, and the importance of community, noting how each could enhance both their lives. The more they talked, the clearer her vision of what she wanted for Caleb became. "I didn't want to be seen as dependent," she confessed, her breath catching. "I thought asking for help showed weakness, but maybe it means I'm simply human." "Exactly," David encouraged, his eyes locked on hers. "It's a strength to know when you need others. Think about it as creating a foundation, not just for yourself, but for Caleb's future." His words lingered, swirling in her mind. The concept of building a network of support, rather than surrendering her independence, began taking root. What if the fear of losing control was less relevant than the possibility of creating new pathways forward? But just as hope stirred within her, doubt crept back, casting a shadow. What if she failed? What if she exposed her vulnerabilities only to find herself more alone than before? As if sensing her turmoil, David gently leaned back, allowing a serene moment of silence to envelop them. It comforted her, letting her wrestle with these thoughts without his presence feeling overwhelming. Her heart raced with a new surge of resolve as she considered the mountains she needed to climb, not just for Caleb, but for herself. She wanted to challenge the illusions that had long held her captive. Taking another breath, she began to contemplate what adopting a more integrated approach to life might look like. "Maybe I need to step outside of my own narrative," she finally said, her voice steadier. "Perhaps it's about learning to pivot, evolving into this role as not just a mother, but as someone willing to embrace community." "That's the spirit," David praised, a proud smile breaking on his face. But as the conversation flowed, and ideas sparkled like facets in a diamond, the doorbell rang again, slicing through the moment. Sarah's heart sank. It was the mailman. She had a package arriving that day. "Excuse me for a moment," she said, standing up, only for an unexplained knot of anxiety to tighten in her stomach. What if this package held news that threatened her budding confidence? The unpredictability of life was daunting, and as she made her way to the door, her thoughts swirled with both excitement and trepidation. What if this was the moment that would change everything? As Sarah reached for the doorknob, her heart thumped violently against her chest. Each pulse felt like a countdown. The conversation with David had ignited a new light within her, yet the timing felt precarious, a balancing act on the precipice of uncertainty. She opened the door, letting the fresh breeze flood into her space, and there stood the mailman, smiling blandly as he handed her the package. "Just a delivery," he said, his tone unassuming as he spoke. Yet, amidst the mundane exchange, her mind was racing again. Would this package contain resources, perhaps validation for the changes she was beginning to embrace? Or would it be another reminder of her failures? She stepped back into the living room, package cradled in her hands like a fragile dream. David, ever perceptive, noticed the shift in her demeanor immediately. "Everything okay?" he asked, concern woven into his voice. "Yeah, just a package," she replied, fingers trembling slightly as she began to peel away the tape. Her breath hitched when she revealed a neatly wrapped box within, and the sight of her own name on the return address nagged at her mind. Was this from the fertility clinic? An overdue notification? Surely it was just a routine communication, but the potential it held was terrifying. "Do you want to open it now?" David gently suggested, leaning slightly in curiosity. A flash of resolve bolstered her nerves, and she nodded. "Yes, I think I need to." As she opened the box, her thoughts cascaded. If it was what she feared, could she handle the implications? Would she move forward with the possibility of adoption? The very thought ignited a mix of hope and anxiety within her, the scales tipping wildly as fear clawed at her confidence. She pulled out a stack of papers. It was the adoption packet she had requested weeks ago. "I reached out for information," she whispered, mostly to herself, shock lacing her words. "But I didn't expect it to arrive today." "What does it say?" David asked, his eyes lighting with curiosity, but he maintained a respectful distance, allowing her a moment to process. "It's just forms, procedures, timelines." But as she thumbed through the pages, something began to buzz in her mind, a blend of excitement and a hefty dose of self-doubt. "Do I really want to do this? Can I do this?" The artifacts of her ambition danced before her, merging with the worry that had kept her stagnant for so long. David watched her, and despite her swirling thoughts, she could see pride reflected in his gaze. "This is huge, Sarah. You're taking a practical step toward something you want." She shook her head, conflicted. "But what if I'm not enough? What if I can't provide Caleb with a stable environment?" Her fear loomed large, accompanied by the echoes of her old narratives of incapacity, failures, and inadequacies. "Let us think about this logically," David encouraged, his tone calm yet assertive. "You're not alone in this. You have options, resources, and more importantly, you have a plan." A plan. That concept resonated with her, instilling a flicker of hope amidst her insecurity. She took a deep breath and forced herself to envision the potential path ahead, adopting, expanding their family, and truly becoming a nurturing environment for both Caleb and a new child. As she sat back down with the packet spread before her, she realized it came full circle. This wasn't just about adoption. It was about redefining her capabilities and consciously stepping into a broader narrative. She felt the urge to challenge her internal barriers head-on. "Maybe it's time to embrace the concept of being strong while still relying on others," she said, this time her voice steadier, more resolute. "Exactly," David said, visibly brightening at her words. "You're ready for this, Sarah. You've already begun your journey." But as Sarah studied the adoption materials, determination warred with apprehension. Would her willingness to pivot towards support ultimately lead to empowerment or new vulnerabilities? Just as hope rekindled within her, the thought struck hard: was she truly ready to face the challenges that lay ahead? With her heart pounding and the weight of possibilities pressing down, she realized that the true test wasn't just in the acceptance of help or ambition, but in whether she could transform doubt into a formidable strength. What if this was just the beginning of not only reshaping her family's future but also redefining who she believed she could be? The next steps awaited, and so did the unknown challenges lurking just beyond them. As Sarah's finger traced the edges of the adoption packet, a mix of determination and trepidation pulsed through her. This was her starting point, a tangible connection to the future she had been contemplating for so long. Yet, the implications were immense. Would she indeed step into motherhood once more, knowing the weight of that title? Should we set up a meeting with the adoption counselor? David's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts, practical and steady. He leaned forward, seeming to recognize her internal struggle. Meeting someone about adoption felt both exciting and intimidating. Would the counselor scrutinize her preparedness, her emotional landscape? The weight of judgment loomed large, yet she knew it was essential to galvanize a clearer understanding of the journey ahead. Maybe, yes. That would be a good start, she finally replied, her voice firmer than she felt inside. It was a decision, a plan taking shape, a first step that recharged her spirit, however tentatively. Daylight seeped through the curtains as Sarah absorbed the contents of the packet. Her resolve solidified further with each page she absorbed. Various scenarios and timelines unfolded, but within the structure, she found an unexpected challenge: herself. Each question prompted deeper self-reflection. Could she, Sarah Wood, guide a child toward a better future? In the past, the answer was blurred by insecurity. Now, she fought against that distorted vision. What are my strengths? What can I offer? She listed her qualities internally: resilience, adaptability, a deep reservoir of love. The conviction became clearer: her potential was not merely about securing a stable environment. It was about creating a safe, nurturing space where joy could thrive. Sensing the momentum shift, David chimed in once more. Have you thought about what it means to forge a blend of your personal experiences with the new opportunities? Kids deserve all of you, with all that you bring. The phrasing echoed in her mind. All of me. For far too long, Sarah had defined herself by her limitations. But the threads of her past were there to illuminate her present, not shackle her future. She had risen through struggles, and now she was ready to embrace what lay ahead. Maybe it's time to call the center and set up that meeting. The words flowed bravely from her lips, wrapping around her like a promise. David's smile was encouraging, a beacon she needed. As she picked up her phone, the initial rush of anxiety washed over her again. What if they assessed her unfit? What if her fears canceled her desires? Taking a deep breath, she dialed, every ring resonating with her heartbeats. Each pulse steered her further into a future that had previously felt inaccessible. Hello, this is Sarah Wood. I'd like to arrange a meeting concerning adoption. Her voice steadied, an unexpected resolve threading through her tone. While the coordinator proposed possible dates, each suggestion bolstered Sarah's confidence. This breakthrough wasn't just about motherhood, it was redemption, a revival of self-worth. She hung up, the realization crackling in her mind that she was taking the reins of her life once more. Yet as elation enveloped her, another wave of doubt gripped her. Facing a new world with adoption also meant confronting the stories of inadequacy that still lingered. It was not merely a bureaucratic process, it was about unearthing the essence of her being and laying bare her heart to new possibilities. Her phone buzzed with a message, jolting her from her reverie. Hey, it's David. Ready for some brainstorming on Caleb's transition into a bigger brother? That question lingered in her mind, a pivotal moment breaching another threshold of life, addressing not just her capabilities but also Caleb's. Was she equipped for not just personal evolution but also to set a foundation for her child's emotional experience? Rubbing her temples against the rush of impending responsibility, Sarah steeled herself. The moment of truth was drawing nearer. What would she discover about her own strength when the time came to initiate Caleb's journey into siblinghood, the eventual realizations waiting just on the other side? As the minutes slipped by in a haze of contemplation, Sarah felt the weight of her decisions pressing down like an anchor. She glanced toward the living room, where Caleb played quietly with his blocks. The sight brought a blend of warmth and anxiety, a reminder of the love they shared, but also of the complexities she now hoped to introduce into their lives. The joy of Caleb's laughter rang like a distant bell, illuminating everything in its path, yet Sarah knew that with beautiful growth came inevitable turbulence. She took a deep breath, her heart swirling with the daunting task ahead. The notion of navigating another child's emotions felt like deep water, one she had not yet learned how to swim in. Brainstorming, she muttered, the idea bold yet foreign. How could she prepare Caleb for a new sibling? They had always been a team, just the two of them against the world. Now, she had to expand their universe, one that would inevitably alter their dynamic. Her phone buzzed again, a reminder of David's earlier suggestion. A rush of determination surged, and she found herself typing out a message. "Let us meet later. Caleb needs to start adjusting, and I want to discuss how we approach this." Before she went to check on Caleb, she thought about the counseling appointment she descheduled. What was she truly hoping to glean from that meeting? Was it merely guidelines on how to adopt, or more about diving into the depths of love and responsibility? The sense of purpose she felt earlier had begun to wane, replaced with simmering doubts. What if this was all a construct of desperation rather than a genuine transformation? The haunting voice of inadequacy was at the periphery of her mind, whispering that she was unworthy of choosing this path. She moved to the kitchen, an automatic gesture seeking comfort. As she poured a cup of herbal tea, Sarah stared at the steam curling upward. The act of nurturing resonated with her instinct, yet every gentle motion reminded her of the potential upheaval she was courting in her life. Would she be strong enough to grapple with the emotional intricacies of a single mother welcoming another child into her fold while also tending to Caleb's needs? Returning to the living room, she settled beside him, watching him build a tower of colorful blocks. "What do you think about having a little brother or sister?" she asked softly, testing the waters of their future. Caleb paused, his brow furrowing in thought. "Will they play with me?" he finally asked, his innocence cutting through Sarah's uncertainty. "Of course, baby, they will," she replied, a surge of protectiveness washing over her. This wasn't only about healing her own heart, it was about ensuring Caleb wouldn't feel abandoned in the process. "I want to teach them things," he said, his eyes brightening. "Like how to build walls." Her heart swelled despite the heaviness resting on her chest. In that moment, she recognized a glimmer of clarity thriving beneath the chaos. She had the power to cultivate not only her hopes but also to encourage Caleb to develop a nurturing spirit. But there remained a lot of work ahead, both in wrangling her fears and sculpting an emotional foundation for them both. Could she guide them through the inevitable turbulence? The thought was exhilarating and terrifying simultaneously. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with an incoming call, jolting her out of contemplation. It was the adoption coordinator, her voice welcoming yet professional. They discussed paperwork and timelines, but Sarah's thoughts drifted to the depths of her own readiness. When the call ended, her heart raced with both excitement and uncertainty. With each ticking second, the walls of safety she had built began to crack. Was she truly prepared to face the shadows of her past while welcoming a new light into their lives? And amidst the whirlpool of thoughts, a distinct realization settled: the time to confront her inner critic was at hand. The upcoming meeting with the adoption counselor was just the beginning. A mirage of transformation lay ahead, yet deep-rooted fears threatened to overshadow it all. And as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting an orangish hue across her world, she understood that she wasn't just on the path to motherhood, she was embarking on a journey toward rediscovery of self. Just as she was about to write down new ideas for Caleb's transition, a chill washed over her. How to reconcile the various parts of her journey: the mother, the individual, the hopeful. Her phone lit up again, displaying David's name. Her hands trembled slightly as she prepared to respond. Was she ready to let him inside her complex world, to really share this struggle? The great unknown awaited, stirring questions that felt sharper than any blade. Would she let them pierce through the fabric of her carefully constructed armor, or would she fortify it even more? In the process of welcoming love, what hidden resentments would she have to face? The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the living room as Sarah picked up her phone to respond to David. Her thumb hovered over the screen, uncertainty twisting her insides into knots. Could she truly open up about the layers of her plans, about the intricacies of her feelings? The prospect of sharing her struggle felt as monumental as the impending shift in their lives. With a deep breath, she typed, "I'm nervous about this process. Can we chat tonight?" The simplicity of the message belied the flood of emotion behind it. Hope clashed against fear, a duality that echoed through the very cores of her decisions. After hitting send, she turned her attention back to Caleb, who remained engrossed in his block structures, a miniature city rising from the carpet. Each tower represented a hope he held. Little did he know, they were mirrors of the uncertainty swirling around them. Could she honestly reassure him when she barely felt reassured herself? As she watched him, an idea began to take shape. Maybe the key to navigating this impending change lay not just in preparing herself, but also in nurturing Caleb's involvement. What if they faced this transition together? The thought ignited a spark within her. She imagined crafting sessions where they could discuss what it truly meant to welcome another child into their home, teaching him to share his world while developing empathy and responsibility. "Hey Caleb," she said, her voice light as she sat beside him, her hand playing with the colorful blocks. "How about we make a family tree? We can add new branches for our new sibling." His face lit up, and she felt a rush of relief at his enthusiasm. "Can we add a dinosaur too?" he asked with innocent joy. "Of course. We'll make it a whole family with dinosaurs and everything. But we must think about names. What do you think we should call them?" His brow furrowed again, this time in thoughtful determination. "Timmy, if it's a boy. And if it's a girl, He paused, turning to her expectantly. "Maybe Olivia?" Sarah suggested, savoring the sound of the name as if it could gently ease the tension binding them both. "Yeah. Olivia." Caleb's voice rang out with excitement, and Sarah felt her heart flutter. Perhaps this moment could be a bridge, connecting the two of them and forging an unbreakable bond with the new child. But as they created their imaginary family, the reality of the counseling appointment loomed larger in her mind. With each block they stacked, her moment of truth approached, a deadline hanging over her like a storm cloud. Could she share her vulnerabilities at the meeting? Would she be able to confront her insecurities, the shadows that threatened to engulf her? Once Caleb was asleep, she sat at the kitchen table, numerous sheets of paper sprawled before her. Her notes, the hopes, her fears, the logistical questions swirling formed a chaotic landscape of thoughts. "It's overwhelming," she thought, "but I must confront it." The appointment was just a few days away. An appointment where she'd have to articulate her dream and yet stand bare before another. What if the counselor sensed her fear, her doubts? They might understand, she reassured herself as she filled out the documents again. This is about the journey forward, it requires honesty. The clock ticked, each sound amplifying the internal struggle she faced. Just then, her phone buzzed, a message from David. "Absolutely, I'd love to talk. I'll support you however I can." A smile crept into her expression, but an unease rattled beneath the surface. Could she allow herself to accept his support? Even more so, could she trust someone else with the raw edges of her life? The opening she felt was astonishing, yet still lined with distrust. As she prepared for her first steps into the counseling session, the concerns about acceptance, family dynamics, and emotional legacies weighed heavily upon her. The path before her widened, and it offered both promise and fear. Yet that promise tugged at her, urging her to shed the last remnants of helplessness. She would have to confront her deepest anxieties, and David's support could be one piece of the puzzle if she allowed it. Would she step forward into the unknown, ready to confront the challenges of motherhood and self-discovery? As she stared at the blank piece of paper across from her, she realized the time to answer those lingering questions was coming. What would she uncover in herself on this path, and could she embrace the change without losing herself? The following morning, each tick of the clock crescendoed with urgency, propelling her into the waiting arms of change. And as dawn painted the world anew, one thought emerged vividly: the time for transformation was now. As the sun surged into noon, bathing everything in a golden hue, Sarah sat in the waiting room of the counseling center, the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafting through the air. It felt surreal to be here, amid the echoes of anxious breaths and rustling papers. She glanced at her watch, the minute hand seeming to mock her with its slow progress. The anticipation gnawed at her stomach, a mix of hope and dread overshadowing her reasons for being there. Her legs bounced nervously, but she forced herself to breathe deeply, trying to dispel the unease settling heavily across her shoulders. Caleb's antics from the previous day, the delight in making imaginary family trees, felt distant now. This wasn't merely about building, about hope, this was an excavation of her guarded heart, a forceful unveiling of her innermost struggles. A woman with soothing eyes and a warm smile exited the door to the counseling room, calling out Sarah's name as she did. For a moment, it was as if the world paused, waiting for her to decide. With a nod, Sarah stood, her shoes striking against the floor, the sound ringing louder than her thoughts. "Hello, Sarah. I'm Dr. Morgan. Please, come in." As she settled into the soft armchair, the room's neutral tones contrasted sharply with the chaos inside her mind. Dr. Morgan regarded her with an encouraging gaze, as if she could pluck the chords of Sarah's anxiety and reveal the music hidden beneath. "Let us start with why you're here today," the counselor prompted, her tone gentle yet firm. Sarah's heart raced. Words stumbled around in her mouth, caught in the web of vulnerability. How could she navigate into the depths of her fears? Yet there was a deeper yearning for clarity pushing her forward. "I want to adopt, but I'm terrified," she confessed, each syllable feeling like a weight released. "Terrified of what exactly?" Dr. Morgan leaned in, her curiosity genuine. "Of failing. Of not being enough," Sarah replied, her voice quivering. "I'm scared that my son won't adapt, or that I won't be able to give this new child the love and stability they deserve." "Yes, those are valid concerns," Dr. Morgan affirmed, her voice steady. "But it's also important to explore your capabilities. What do you think makes you a good mother to Caleb?" The question hit her with the force of an unexpected wave. She hesitated, recalling the adventures they had shared, the creative family trees, the bedtime stories, the endless support she always strived to give. I listen to him. I encourage him to express himself. I try to foster kindness and imagination," she admitted, surprised by the swell of pride surging through her. "Exactly. You have built a foundation for Caleb that nurtures his growth. Those very qualities are invaluable." Sarah could feel the shadows of doubt begin to recede, if only slightly. Beneath her fears lay a network of skills she hadn't acknowledged. She felt kindling inside her, a flame of realization igniting. With renewed resolve, she pressed on. "What if I'm not prepared for the challenges that come with adoption? Will I be able to handle sibling rivalry, the complexities of their pasts? What do I say when Caleb asks difficult questions?" Dr. Morgan's expression was calm yet attentive. "No one has all the answers, Sarah. What matters is your willingness to show up for them, to engage in conversations of honesty. Isn't that what you're already doing with Caleb?" A wave of determination washed over Sarah. She had risen to every challenge with her son, crafting a supportive environment even through her trepidation. Yet this next step demanded more trust in herself, and in her ability to seek help when needed. As she processed this newfound clarity, her thoughts meandered back to David. Bringing him into her journey frightened her as much as embracing adoption. Would he understand her needs? Could he be a partner in these tumultuous waters? "Let us explore that connection," Dr. Morgan suggested. "What do you envision your relationship with David could be in this new context?" The question lingered in the air, piercing through her earlier doubts and drawing her deeper into reflection. In that moment, she recognized that her evolution would require courage not just in adopting a child, but also in nurturing the connections that surrounded her. As the session drew to a close, Sarah felt a soft but powerful urge to confront David with her newfound insights. The prospect of sharing her vulnerabilities alongside a vision for her future became a pathway to understanding herself and fostering her family's growth. Leaving the office, she realized the tension that had once gripped her began to weaken, replaced instead with curiosity. If she could take this daunting step, What else might she discover about herself? But before she could fully embrace those thoughts, a sharp notification from her phone interrupted her flow. David had sent a message, and the brevity of his words sent a rush of excitement and apprehension through her. "I have something important to discuss. Can we meet soon?" What did he mean by important? What new revelations awaited her? As Sarah waited anxiously in her apartment, the stark realization of her growth washed over her like a refreshing wave. From the moment she had stepped into the counselor's office, she knew she was ready to confront her fears, a monumental shift that was now shining brightly along her path. The weighty emotions of self-doubt had gradually lightened, morphing into a deeper understanding of her capabilities. She had accepted that being a mother did not equate to navigating life completely alone. In fact, it meant embracing vulnerability and allowing herself to lean on others without losing her sense of independence. Each day she spent with Caleb was a testament to her growth. He thrived in her nurturing environment, and now, the prospect of welcoming another child into their lives felt exhilarating rather than overwhelmingly daunting. Their morning ritual under the sun, building imaginary family trees together, reminded her of the joys of exploration, of love, trust, and the unexpected connections she was beginning to forge beyond her previous imaginings. It was a dance of bravery, where embracing new normals also meant embracing potential uncertainties, and she felt herself moving with newfound confidence. When the doorbell rang, anxiety and anticipation harmonized in her core, creating a rhythmic beat with every passing second. She waited for the heaviness to dissolve before she opened the door, to reveal David standing there, his expression an intriguing mix of seriousness and warmth. "Thanks for seeing me," he said, stepping inside as she gestured for him to enter. The familiar space suddenly felt charged with meaning, laden with the potential for connection and the clarity she had tapped into during her session. "Of course. I got your message," she replied, sensing the gravity in his demeanor. A question lingered unspoken between them, hovering like mist. "Sarah, I've been thinking a lot about what it means to support each other. To be strong enough to lean on one another," David began, nervously shuffling his feet. Her heart raced, anticipating his next words. "I believe helping you with Caleb and the adoption could be a partnership that also aids my growth," he continued. "I understand what it is to strive alone, but it's important to me that we create something more meaningful together, something that nurtures both you and Caleb." As she absorbed his intentions, she felt the flutter of a fragile hope. The thought of sharing this journey with someone who truly comprehended the intricacies of emotional vulnerability inspired her. It cemented her realization that extending her circle would contribute to their evolution as a family. "I'm ready to embrace this partnership, David," she said, the words flowing with unexpected ease. "I see your commitment as a catalyst for our shared success. I want to navigate the transition to welcoming a new child together, but I need to establish transparency and trust." The air shifted around them, lightening as their conversation took a crucial turn. David seemed to breathe more freely, the tension dissipating, and together they began to delve into discussions about their hopes, their fears, and how they could collectively foster Caleb's emotional preparedness. This moment marked a crossroads, a visible pivot from solitary hope to a flourishing partnership. Plans emerged from their discourse like an intricate tapestry. They would engage Caleb in this journey, providing opportunities to express himself continually. They envisioned becoming a nurturing triad, where each individual played an essential role in shaping a family bound by resilience and love. "In the end, it's not just about bringing another child into the mix," Sarah said, feeling the fire of affirmation blaze within her. "It's about fortifying emotions and instilling values even for Caleb. I believe this opportunity will shape his character, just as it will reinforce mine." David nodded, a newfound admiration gleaming in his eyes. "I think you've truly captured the essence of this journey, Sarah. And I want you to know I'm here to support your choices, all of them. Whether it involves restoring a sense of independence, as it turns out, or building a community of support." In that moment, Sarah understood that she had crossed the threshold from fear to empowerment. It was not merely about gathering strength for herself, it was about sharing vulnerability, about recognizing that together, they could forge an unbreakable bond of support which would extend far beyond their individual journeys. As they finalized their plans, a shared vision emerged. The first steps were delicate, but Sarah felt a solid confidence wash over her. She was no longer simply a single mother, she was an architect of her destiny, creating a nurturing environment for her son and future child, full of love, clarity, and resiliency. The target date for the adoption meeting loomed ahead, beckoning her forward into a world of possibilities. The next chapter would not only reshape their family dynamics but also grant her the accolades she longed for as a confident mother, someone who could weather any storm while nurturing her family's emotional landscape, unfolding ideas, and building connections that would last a lifetime. As the final discussion closed, Sarah recognized the depth of her transformation. She was a woman who had successfully navigated her fears and embraced help, proving that strength came not just from independence but from the shared journey of exploration and love. This was her moment to celebrate, a feeling of deep satisfaction and deserved fulfillment coursed through her veins. This time, Sarah stood firmly on the threshold of a brighter future, ready to embrace whatever came next with unwavering strength. Now is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and comment your reactions and theories about the ending. But don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who desperately need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the vital importance of supporting our channel through these actions. Let's create a vibrant community together.